This is the Mazda 6e, a fully electric liftback sedan style model with plenty of standard spec and tech expected. I'll also tell you the price that you can expect to pay for it in this review and some great alternatives too. Plus we'll go for a drive and I'll show you what it's like. So thanks for subscribing. Let's check it out, shall we? Now, the Mazda 6e is essentially a Chinese sedan that's been rebranded. That's one way you could look at it, but this is a byproduct of the engagement between Changan Automotive, which brings out Deepal models in Australia, and Mazda, which has been in place for years and years. And this is a pretty convincing offering in terms of what it offers and how it fits into the Mazda ethos. Well, in some ways. I'll show you the interior and you can make up your own mind about that shortly. But let's talk about what this thing is going to cost. There's going to be one spec. It's going to cost under $55,000 before on-road costs. So that's bang in the sweet spot when it comes to EV sedans. I'll tell you some alternatives that you might want to cross-shop in the next section of this video. But let's talk about what you're going to get as standard in this model. Things like 19-inch alloy wheels, LED lighting all around the car. You'll have smart key access. There's a digital instrument cluster. You've also got a big touchscreen media system. It'll have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, sat-nav as well. And you're also going to have things like heated seats, electric seat adjustment, and plenty of other luxury features like a twin pane glass roof too. So, in terms of what you're paying and what you're getting, it seems like it's going to be on the right foot straight off the bat. But let's talk about some alternatives that you might otherwise want to consider if you're thinking about an electric sedan style car. It'd be easy to call out the Tesla Model 3 as the best alternative to this because, well, in a lot of ways it is, but it does ask you to change the way you interact with the car. And for me, it's not as appealing for that matter. So here are three other options that you should consider. The BYD Seal is one of them. It starts below $50,000. There's a few different versions available. It looks fantastic on the outside and it feels good on the inside. And it does have a decent amount of EV driving range as well. Another great one to consider is the Polestar 2. It's a rear-wheel drive sedan like this. You can get it with all-wheel drive if you want, but it's a very appealing car because it does things a little bit differently. It's more of a crossover sedan, and that means that it does have some interesting interior elements to it because it's maybe not as spacious as it could be, but it does seem like a pretty good vehicle. And I mean, the pricing, well, the real pricing might be way better than the list pricing suggests. And another fantastic choice if you're thinking I want a rear-wheel drive luxurious sedan with plenty of standard tech, have a look at the MG IM5. It could be the choice if you are thinking about something like this. 61 grand drive away is the entry-level price, but it does have a level of wow factor to it that some of the others in this segment just can't match. But what would you do? Have your say in the comments, and let's keep going with this review. Rightio, have a look at this and tell me if you think this looks Mazda enough. I personally think this is one of the nicest looking models in the electric sedan style segment. And I keep saying sedan style because it looks like a sedan, it's actually a hatchback. Now I'm going to put some dimensions on your screen so you can see for yourself. It is not a small car, almost 5 meters long, and it does have a pretty long wheelbase as well. There are some things that I don't necessarily love about it though. These door handles are a little bit annoying if the car decides to shut them because it's done that right now. And well, there's another thing, there's quite a big sill to contend with when you are stepping in and out of the car. Let's have a look at the back end here. You'll see for yourself, it does have a very sleek design and those tail lights do look very Mazda-y and Mazda 6e, you might say. All right, let's have a look in the boot. You can electronically open it from the screen as well if you want to. And as you can see here, there's plenty of cargo capacity in the back of this family-friendly model. And yes, it does have a lift back hatch, as you can see right there, but maybe that harks back to the old Mazda 6s of years gone by after all. In here you'll see there is a light little halogen number there, and underneath this floor section there's, well, a can of goo, and you're not going to get a spare, so that might be something you want to keep in mind. But does it have a frunk? You bet it does, and it's a massive one. Have a look at how much extra storage space you've got in the front area of the Mazda 6e. Certainly a very practical choice, great spot for your charge cables and stuff in there too. Alrighty, let's have a look at this Mazda 6e, and yes, the steering wheel's on the wrong side. This is a left-hand drive European spec model, so it's obviously a little bit different to what we're going to see, but the standard spec and tech here is what we are going to get, essentially. So you've got a digital instrument display here with plenty of information on screen there, as you can see. My biggest thing is that, well, it doesn't really match in terms of the fonts. So I guess that could be an issue if you're a nitpicker and maybe you've owned Mazdas before and you like the way they do things with their fonts. But yeah, you get the Mazda badge there and you don't get the Mazda fonts here as well. Now let's have a look at some of the other considerations here. So you do have a column mounted shifter, park on the end. Your cruise control is by tapping down while you're driving, and on that side you've got a blinker and wiper switch, and here you'll see you've got some buttons that you might want to get used to, cruise control stuff that you might want to learn, and you've got a 360-degree camera view there as well, so you can quickly trigger that, and then you've got some other menu controls and so forth here. Now this screen, I haven't had much time to get to terms with it, but I am pretty impressed by the design of it, and well, apart from the fact that it doesn't have the Mazda fonts, but look, it is very much a Chinese style interface in terms of what I've come to expect of Chinese brands. There's a number of different menus on this side panel, and then you'll fill up this part with some of the controls. So for instance, I was playing before with the driving modes, and look, there's a few different modes that you can go through. There's plenty of different menus upon menus upon menus, and obviously I have to wait and see what the Australian spec one looks like when it comes to our market, but we'll, you know, it does have pretty much what you would expect in terms of the quick adjustments and being able to jump into different elements of the screen. I'm not going to go into heaps of detail because it's going to be a bit different when we get it here, I would suggest. But look at this. Yeah, you've got the climate control stuff on screen. This home bar will stay there all the time, and you can go here to go into your seat heating if you wish. And you can also talk to it. It says the Mazda thing there, so you can talk to it and get it to do things for you if you need it to. And you've got your mirror stuff on screen as well. So you have to do it like a Tesla using the controls on the steering wheel. So those things might take some getting used to, but it is, you know, a smart car. It's got memory settings and all that sort of stuff as well. And you've also got a boot opening button there. It doesn't necessarily indicate to me that that's the boot button. I pressed that because I thought it was the car menu before. Anyway, look, this screen, like I said, there's a lot more to cover about it when we get time to later on, when the car launches in Australia, and it feels a bit more normal with the steering wheel on the correct side. Now, there's a wireless phone charger here. There's also some good-sized cup holders between the seats. One thing I really like is this. That's your center console button. That's a nice touch, I would say. And speaking of nice touches, the material finishing on these seats is great. I love the embossed Mazda in the seat finish there. I'm not convinced that it's the most cowl-like material that I've ever felt, but I do like the suede section, and the two-tone finishing is very nice in my opinion. But I'd love to know if you think it looks good or a bit too smoker's lounge to you. Now, you've got the suede finish up here as well, glove box as you would expect, good sized bottle holders in the doors, and a twin pane glass roof. As you can see there, it is a pretty tidy glass roof. They're quite thick as well, so if you want to close things up, you can. Auto dimming rear vision mirror, and your actual vanity mirrors, well, they're there, yep. Not illuminated, which is a bit strange, but these don't adjust either, so you can't sort of stretch the sun visors out. There's a head-up display as well in this particular car. I'm assuming we'll get that as standard too, and that little bloke right there is your driver monitoring camera, which is one of those safety features that you might not like, but I'll tell you a little bit more about the safety stuff later on. Now, let's check out the backseat space and see what it's like. And just like that button in the front for the center console, you've got that nice sort of finishing in front of each of the rear passengers. Now, let's talk about the space here, because it's a little bit tight for footroom in particular, and as a driver, you also feel like you sit quite high up. So if you are a tall person, it might not be the most comfortable in the front or the back. My toes are quite tight underneath there, but I do have lots and lots of knee room here. Headroom, well, it's tight as well. So it's maybe a better car for short people than big ones. Now let's have a look at some of these finishes in the back. We've got the same sort of trimming back here, nice elbow pads, actual door handles, which is a nice plus for a Chinese made car these days. And you've got bottle holders down here, matte pockets, and you've also got a little storage tray down below there with some charging options. And here you've got a climate control system, which also has a clever adjustment feature, so you can slide forward the front passenger seats, which will be the other way around for our market, obviously. But look, I think it's an interesting inclusion. You've got ISOFIX points in the window seats, 3 top tethers as well for the Australian market versions, and a flip down armrest with some cup holders here. So I think that as long as you can keep in mind that it's not the most spacious in terms of overall interior height and overall space, I would say, then you might be getting a pretty compelling choice, and it looks and feels pretty good, I've got to say. But one other thing, the seat itself, a little bit firm on the buttock. Now when it comes to the powertrain, you don't actually need the bonnet to be open because it's an electric motor at the rear axle with a single speed transmission, and it offers 190 kilowatts of power. So certainly a very, very good amount of grunt. Now we don't know the exact weights and those sorts of things for the Australian spec model just yet, but we do know a little bit about the battery pack. So let's talk about that now. Mazda Australia has confirmed that this car will come with a 78 kilowatt hour LFP battery pack for the Australian market. The exact amount of EV driving range is still to be confirmed 100%, but it does have more than 500 Ks, as Mazda Australia has told me. And when it comes to the charging stuff, well, we still have to learn a little bit more about that too, but you can probably expect it to come with 11 kilowatt AC charging by way of your charge port at the back here. That should mean a full charge in about 8 hours or so. And then of course there's going to be DC charging as well. The exact specs for that aren't confirmed just yet for our market, but Mazda Australia has told me that you should be able to do the 30 to 80% charge in about 15 minutes. So promising charging specs, at least so far. We'll have to wait and see. Make sure you ring the bell and subscribe, and you'll be notified when I get a chance to do a real drive in this car. But right now we're going to go and do a drive here at Lang Lang to see what it's like in some, well, not as realistic situations. Okay, for this drive experience, I'm not doing my usual detailed test because I'm at Lang Lang Proving Ground, which is where they used to make Holdens, well, out-handle most of the other cars in the world. Now, this car isn't necessarily here for an in-depth tuning program or anything. It's just here because this is the best place to showcase a mix of different Australian road conditions. And let me tell you, it feels pretty much up to the task when it comes to the dynamics of things. Maybe not the overall dynamic, joyfulness or playfulness that you might be hoping for, but it is a rear-wheel drive electric sedan, so it does have a good amount of dynamism to it. It's just, it feels a little bit remote in some ways. So there's maybe a little bit more wobble to the body than you might be expecting. The steering's not necessarily that communicative, but it does sort of tick the box for this type of car in this market segment, in that it's not offensive in any particular way in terms of the ride and handling. And the suspension is actually pretty good over some little bumps here. There we go. Yeah, it behaves itself quite well, I have to say. Changing directions, I think the thing that is maybe the most difficult to get used to is the steering feel. There are multiple different modes that you can choose from as well, and there's an adaptive regen braking mode as well, so you can choose between different regen braking modes. And I have to say, as I've experienced today at mainly higher speeds, the actual brake pedal feel is not too bad. Some other EVs can be quite difficult to judge the brake pedal feel, but also the regen braking hasn't necessarily been as aggressive as some others either. So there's no like single pedal driving mode where it will be really assertive and make you feel car sick. And that's probably to its benefit, I've got to say. Now, 190 kilowatts for an electric sedan like this, I mean, that is plenty, and it does really slingshot you when you put your foot down. It is fast, there's no doubt about that. But like, does it really feel like a Mazda to me? I'm not so sure about that. But what I am sure about is the fact that this feels refined, and it feels comfortable, and it feels like exactly what it needs to be for the type of buyer who is going to be considering this type of car. Now, if I think about what the Mazda 6 buyer was before, typically an older person, and typically not necessarily going to use the back seats anyway, unless it's for grandkids. So I think this car will meet that requirement for most people and do it inoffensively, do it pretty comfortably, and do it in a Mazda-y way. Maybe not the most Mazda-y Mazda I've driven, but I think it's a pretty good, strong effort in terms of what's on offer here. And I actually quite like it in a lot of different ways, but obviously we'll have to wait and see what the safety calibration is like in terms of the safety tech, because that is typically the biggest stumbling point for a lot of Chinese made vehicles. So there is driver monitoring, there is a speed sign recognition system. Don't know what they're like because I haven't had them on for this test. So we'll have to wait and see, but ring the bell and you'll be notified when I get a chance to do a more detailed drive in this car. Okay, what about efficiency? Well, the number I've found on the EV database website is 17 kilowatt hours per 100 Ks for a 80 kilowatt hour vehicle like this one from European spec. So that is perfectly acceptable, I would say, for this type of vehicle that's this big. It is a big vehicle, remember. And look, I haven't had a chance to really keep an eye on the actual efficiency here, and it's been a lot of higher speed driving. And as you know, typically if you've got high regen set on and you do a lot of urban stop-start driving, you might actually get better efficiency than the claim. But look, I think 17 kilowatt hours per 100, if that's what this car gets in Australia, that'll be class competitive and it'll be a relatively efficient kind of vehicle. Now, if you're wondering what that should mean in terms of the driving range, well, 500 Ks plus is what they're claiming, and on the screen it has shown me just on 500 Ks when it was almost fully charged. So yeah, should be pretty accurate, I would suggest. The Mazda 6e just achieved the maximum 5-star Euro NCAP safety rating based on 2025 criteria. So it's a safe vehicle by their standards, probably get a 5-star rating for the Australian market as well. And it's got heaps and heaps of standard safety spec and tech. I haven't had a good chance to test everything out as part of this review, but it's going to have things like autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian, cyclist, motorcyclist, and also rear AEB. So it can do auto braking for pedestrians if you're reversing as well. Plus there's blind spot monitoring and recross traffic alert as well, and heaps of other stuff like adaptive cruise control and heaps of features that you might not necessarily like a driver monitoring camera and speed sign recognition, but haven't been able to tell whether they're accurate or annoying in this review. Make sure you ring the bell and subscribe and you'll be notified when I get a chance to do a more real world test in the Mazda 6e. And when it comes to the airbags, there's dual front side, a front center airbag and curtain coverage for both rows of seats. Mazda Australia offers a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, and look, we don't know exactly what's going to happen with the battery warranty and stuff, but a guide is probably 8 years and 160,000 Ks. That is basically the industry standard. Don't know about servicing intervals, but I would suggest it's probably going to be something like 12 months and 20,000 Ks per service. And just like the other Mazdas in the range, you can expect a cap price servicing plan and 5 years of roadside assistance included at no extra cost as well. So in terms of the ownership stuff, it's going to be like a Mazda. And that's exactly why you're buying it, right? I think the Mazda 6e could be a real hit for the brand. There are some things that maybe aren't perfect in my opinion, but I'd love to know what you think about it. Have your say in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you when I see you.